It's 2 a.m. The room is dark, but her soul is lit with a storm. You are no longer there, not in her bed, not in her life, not in the places where love used to dwell. Yet somehow, in this hour when the world sleeps, her mind becomes a battlefield. You see, it's in the silence of the night where the truth becomes the loudest voice. And in that silence, she doesn't just remember you, she feels you. She revisits the echoes of laughter that once danced in the air, the warmth of your presence that once gave her peace, and the way her heart felt safe in your hands. Now all she has is the ghost of what once was. And tonight, this night, she wrestles with it all. That's why you must hear this, because someone you loved is still hurting ... and you don't even know it. She's not broken because she's weak. No, she's broken because she was whole with you. She gave love freely, unconditionally, fiercely, without keeping a score, without needing a reason. She believed in the story. You two were writing. But now, the story has stopped, and she doesn't know which page you tore out. She keeps flipping back and forth, looking for the moment things changed, the second your heart shifted, the instant your soul stopped calling. Her name, and she cannot find it. That's what haunts her. It's not your absence that crushes her, it's the unanswered questions that echo in the chambers of her soul. At 2 a.m., her pride sleeps, her ego is gone. There is no pretense, no makeup, no walls. There's only the raw, unfiltered ache of someone who loved without borders. You may think she's moved on. You may think time has healed her. But time, my friend, does not always heal. It only hides the wound beneath layers of distraction. The pain is still there. And tonight, she's not fighting sleep. She's fighting memories. She's having conversations in her mind that never took place, trying to rewrite the ending, wishing just once you had said what you truly felt before walking away. Do you know what it's like for a woman to question her worth because someone stopped choosing her? It's a kind of spiritual warfare. It shakes her belief not just in love, but in herself. She wonders if she wasn't enough, if she was too much, if she loved you more than you ever asked for. And then she starts to think maybe loving too deeply is a curse. But I tell you today, it is not. Loving deeply is never the problem. Walking away from such love is. She stares at the ceiling, but she's not just thinking about you, she's praying. Not for your return, no, she's wiser now. She's praying for healing. She's asking for peace. She's pleading with heaven to take the ache away, to remind her that her worth was never in your hands. At 2 a.m., when the body is weakest and the soul is most exposed, she's not seeking revenge, she's seeking redemption. Redemption of her own identity, her own heart, her own strength. And in those quiet tears, something sacred happens. She begins to rise, slowly, quietly. But surely, you may never know the depth of the love she carried. You may never hear the way she whispered your name into her pillow one last time. You may never feel the emptiness she tried to fill with prayer. But that doesn't mean her love wasn't real. That doesn't mean she didn't bleed every time you pulled away. And it surely doesn't mean she's forgotten. No, she remembers. And in remembering, she finds a piece of herself she once gave to you and now must reclaim. Her mind at 2 a.m. is a sacred place. It is where pain and peace collide. It is where regret and revelation wrestle. And above all, it is where God begins to speak louder than the voice of heartbreak. He whispers, "You are still mine. You are still worthy. You are still enough." And in that moment, she stops looking for you in the dark and begins searching for the light within herself. So to every soul listening, know this: the one you left behind is not the same anymore. She is rebuilding. She is relearning. She is restoring. And one day, When the clock strikes 2 a.m. again, it will no longer be the hour of sorrow, it will be the hour of resurrection. At 2 a.m., everything you once ignored comes back to visit. The noise of the day is gone. There are no messages lighting up her phone, no music to distract the mind, no roles to play, no faces to smile for. It's just her thoughts, her memories, her aching heart. And in that hour, silence is not peaceful, it is honest. It doesn't comfort her, it confronts her. It forces her to sit in a room where your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. She stares at the ceiling, not because she's waiting for sleep, but because she's staring into the space where her future used to be. You were a part of her picture, she painted her life with you in every frame, and now the canvas is cracked and colorless. There's no one to tell this to. No one who would understand the conversation she has with your shadow. No one who would believe she still waits for the door that never opens or the message that never comes. This is not weakness, it's war. And the battlefield is her own mind. She replays the moments that once gave her butterflies, and now they feel like knives. She wonders if you ever meant the things you said, if your laughter was real, if the warmth she felt was just her own heart hoping too hard. At 2 a.m., there's no filter to protect her. Her mind doesn't lie to her. It tells her everything she pushed away during the day. It tells her that maybe you were already halfway gone when you held her hand for the last time. Maybe the goodbye didn't come in words, but in the coldness of your last touch. And that memory, that single moment, burns like fire in her chest. Because now she knows what it feels like to be forgotten by someone she still remembers in every breath. And still, in this lonely hour, she finds herself justifying you, blaming herself, asking if she expected too much, if she should have loved you less, held back more, kept her soul wrapped tighter. But she didn't know how. She gave freely. She gave deeply. She gave with a faith that you would never leave. And now, she sits in the ruins of that trust, trying to rebuild herself without the parts she handed to you. People think healing happens in therapy rooms or in daylight walks, but true healing? It starts at 2 a.m. when she finally realizes you're not coming back and she has to stop waiting. It's in that moment, in that brutal silence, where honesty breaks her down and begins the slow work of building her back up. Because only when everything is quiet can the truth finally speak. And at 2 a.m., it doesn't whisper, it shouts. It weeps, it prays. And somehow, somewhere between the tears and the trembling, she begins to hear another voice, the voice not of pain, but of purpose. The voice that reminds her she's still breathing, still here, still worthy. And it's from that place, the hour of honest silence, that she will rise. She didn't love with conditions. She didn't calculate what she would get in return. She didn't ask for guarantees. She simply gave, fully, fearlessly, fiercely. Hers was the kind of love that didn't wait for perfect timing or perfect people. It just existed, pure and unraveled, like a river that refuses to be dammed. She wasn't protecting herself from heartbreak because she believed in the beauty of loving without limits. To her, love wasn't a transaction. It was transformation. And when she looked at you, she saw something worth believing in. So she gave you all of her light, even if you were only holding shadows. She gave you all her trust, even when you never asked to be trusted. That's what it means to love without guardrails. It means opening your soul even when there's no safety net beneath your heart. But now, in your absence, that same love becomes the very weight she carries. It's not easy for her to understand how something that felt so right could end so quietly. She replays every memory, not to torture herself, but to find a reason, something that makes sense. But there's nothing. And that's the cruelty of loving with an open heart. You don't just hurt when someone leaves, you question everything they ever stayed for. The things that made her feel chosen now make her feel abandoned. The words that made her smile now echo like unfinished sentences in her mind. She wonders if she missed the signs. If she was so busy loving you, she forgot to see you slipping away. And yet, she doesn't regret loving you. That's the remarkable part. Even in this ache, even with tears falling like confessions, she would still choose to love the same way. Why? Because it wasn't about what you did or didn't do. It was about who she is. She is someone who loves beyond logic, beyond fear, beyond reason. That love didn't make her weak, it made her rare. Most people build walls after pain. She built bridges. Most people count the risk. She counted the connection. Her heart didn't ask for permission to feel, it just felt. Deeply, eternally, authentically. And now, in your absence, that same heart is still beating, still believing, still waiting for healing. But something inside her is beginning to change. Not in the way she loves, but in what she tolerates. She's learning that love without guardrails still needs direction, that even a giving soul deserves to receive, that even a heart as wild and open as hers has the right to be protected. She's not closing herself off. No, she's simply choosing to no longer hand her whole world to someone who only visits when it's convenient. And that is the beginning of her strength. Because the same soul that once loved without limits is now learning to love with wisdom. And that wisdom was born in the very fire that your absence lit. There's a quiet war happening inside her every night, especially when the clock strikes those hollow hours, those cold, echoing minutes past midnight. On one side stands closure, the need to accept that it's over, that what was once blooming has withered, that your chapter in her life has closed without a period, just an uncomfortable silence. On the other side stands hope, fragile but persistent, whispering that maybe this is just a pause, maybe you'll return. Maybe the love you once showed wasn't a lie, but a moment of weakness that can still be mended. And between these two forces, one, rooted in healing, the other in longing, she exists, suspended, unable to fully fall into either side. That is the war she fights. And the battlefield is her soul. Closure isn't easy for her, not because she's naive, but because she's loyal. She doesn't know how to detach quickly from people she once prayed for. She doesn't know how to call someone a stranger when their memories still sit in her chest like sacred scripture. She craves closure, yes, but she knows closure is not just a conversation. It's not just an apology. It's an internal reckoning, a death of expectation, a burial of the beautiful things that never got a proper goodbye. And she's not ready for that, because part of her still waits. Part of her still looks for your name in the notifications. Still wonders if you ever think of her when it's late and quiet where you are too. But hope, though sweet, is not always kind. It feeds her with what-ifs. It tells her to hold on just a little longer. It plays tricks on her emotions. One song, one scent, one memory can shake her to her knees, convincing her that the story isn't finished. She knows it might be an illusion. But illusions are sometimes the only warmth the heart has left when love has grown cold. That hope, though it sometimes keeps her breathing, also keeps her chained. Because with every sunrise, with every unanswered call, it becomes harder to deny that the one she's waiting for isn't coming back. And the truth is, hope hurts when it outlives its purpose. So here she is living in limbo, torn between the desire to move on and the fear of forgetting, battling between letting go and holding on. People on the outside see her smile, see her laugh, see her move through the motions of life, but they don't see this war. They don't hear the silent arguments she has with herself. They don't feel the moments when she's strong in the daylight and shattered by moonlight. This war is quiet, but it is consuming. Because it's not about just losing a person, it's about losing the future she built around them. But even in this war, something sacred is happening. In the tension between closure and hope, she is being refined. Her spirit is being tested. Her soul is being stretched. And slowly, painfully, she is learning that peace is not always a gift given by others, it is a decision made alone. Often in the middle of the night, when both hope and closure have stopped answering back. It's strange how silence can be so loud. It fills the room when the conversations end, when the laughter fades, and when the door finally closes for the last time. But what haunts her most is not the words you said, it's the ones you never did. At 2 a.m., when sleep slips through her, fingers like dust, she isn't only mourning your absence, she's replaying all the moments that felt incomplete. She thinks about the times you looked away when she needed your eyes. She remembers the hugs that felt a little colder than before, the good nights that didn't carry the same warmth, the smiles that slowly disappeared. And within all of that silence, she finds the loudest pain, the echo of what was never said. She would have given anything to hear you say, "I see you, I appreciate you," or even, "I'm sorry." But those words never came. You left her with unanswered questions, unfinished moments, and a love that had nowhere to go. Now it lives in her bones. It lingers in her breath. It rests in her chest like a weight she can't lift. Because you never gave her the ending she deserved. You gave her a silence that still screams. She remembers the way she used to wait for you to notice when something was wrong. Wait for you to ask how she was really feeling. Wait for you to acknowledge the effort she put into loving you. But the words never came. She hoped for comfort, but got quiet. She longed for connection, but got confusion. She was not asking for grand speeches or poetic declarations, just simple truth. Just presence. Just the courage to say what needed to be said before it was too late. Now those unspoken words have become ghosts in her mind. They visit her in the quiet hours and speak with the voice she remembers, the one she used to trust. They say what you never said. They apologize in your tone. They whisper every possibility she once hoped to hear. But they're not real. They're not healing. They're hollow memories trying to fill a space that can only be filled by truth. And that's what she craved, not perfection, not promises, just the truth. She's come to realize that silence can be a form of cruelty. That saying nothing at all can sometimes hurt more than saying the wrong thing. Because silence makes her question everything. Was the love real? Were the smiles honest? Did she ever truly matter to you? These are the questions that arise in the darkness, when there's nothing left to distract her from the ache. And they don't go away when the sun rises, as they stay hidden behind the noise of the day, waiting to return when the world gets quiet again. And yet, she is still standing. Because even though she never received the closure she deserved, she's beginning to give it to herself. Every tear she sheds, every journal entry, every prayer whispered into her pillow, it's all a part of the healing that you couldn't offer. The words you never said have left scars. Yes, but they've also carved space for something more honest, something more sacred, something that will not echo but endure. They say time heals all wounds, but they forget to mention the nights. They forget that at night, when the lights go out and the body is still, the heart doesn't get that same permission to rest. Her broken heart doesn't sleep. It stays awake long after the world has closed its eyes, pulsing with unanswered pain and buried emotions. The bed may hold her body, but her spirit paces the floor, revisiting memories, retracing conversations, reliving the beginning and the bitter end. She doesn't lie awake because she's weak. She lies awake because pain doesn't respect rest. Because when love has been ripped from the soul, sleep becomes a stranger. Comfort becomes foreign. And the night becomes a stage for grief. This is the kind of heartbreak that doesn't cry out loud, it whispers. It trembles. It floods her silently. And she bears it with dignity, with silence, and with a strength that no one sees. People assume she's fine because she shows up, because she smiles, because she still functions, but they don't know that. At 3 a.m., she's staring at the ceiling, not looking for sleep but for meaning. She's asking herself why the love she gave wasn't enough to keep you. She's wondering if you feel anything at all, or if your silence is the answer she never wanted. This kind of heartbreak is not a sharp pain. It's a dull, persistent ache. It's the weight in her chest when she wakes up. It's the heaviness in her spirit when she hears your name. It's the way she suddenly forgets how to breathe in places that once felt like home. You see, when love leaves without explanation, the heart doesn't just break, it becomes confused. It doesn't know whether to hold on or let go. It doesn't know whether to forgive or forget, so it does neither. It just hurts, quietly, faithfully, endlessly and still. Every night, she holds herself together. Not with answers, but with resilience. Not with certainty, but with faith. There are moments when she prays not for your return, but for her own return to herself. Because somewhere in the love she gave, she lost parts of who she was. And now at night, in the company of her tears, she is slowly reclaiming what she handed over so freely. Every sleepless night becomes a testimony not of weakness, but of endurance. Every breath she takes through the pain is a reminder that healing isn't always visible. It's often quiet, internal, unseen. She no longer begs for the closure you refuse to give. She no longer waits for the apology that never came. She's learning that the heart, though broken, can still beat. That pain, though deep, can still produce purpose. And though her heart may not sleep, it is slowly waking up to something greater: self-worth, clarity, strength. And that awakening, though birthed in darkness, is where her real healing begins. Because sometimes the most sacred parts of us are not found in peace, but in pain, and the heart that refuses to sleep is the heart that refuses to give up. There comes a moment, quiet, crushing, and unmistakable, when she realizes no one is coming to save her, not you. Not the people she once leaned on, not the voices that once promised forever. She sits there, late into the night, staring into the void where your love used to live, and finally accepts the most painful truth of all. It's just her now. Her and the silence. Her and the ache. Her and the fragments of a heart that still believes in something greater, even if everything around her has fallen apart. And it's in that sacred moment, in that soul-stripped, tear-stained hour, that faith becomes her only companion. Not faith in you, not even faith in love, but faith in something deeper. Faith in a God she can't see but hopes is listening. Faith that there is still purpose in her pain. Faith that somehow, even this will not be wasted. She never expected to be here. She thought the love she gave would be enough to hold things together. She thought loyalty meant permanence. She thought good hearts were protected. But life, especially love, has a way of undoing even the strongest expectations. So now, at 2 a.m., when her hands are empty and her heart is heavy, she clings not to answers but to the only thing she has left: faith. It is not blind optimism. It is not naive hope. It is quiet, trembling, desperate belief that she will rise, that she will heal, and that God has not forgotten her. The world doesn't see this side of her. They see her show up. They see her smile. They hear her say she's okay. But they don't see the prayers whispered through sobs. They don't hear the words she speaks in the darkness, begging for peace to meet her where pain now lives. And yet, somehow, she still believes. Because deep inside, something sacred refuses to die. Something holy whispers, "This isn't the end." And that whisper becomes her strength. She doesn't have all the pieces. She doesn't know how long this will last. But she knows the same God who gave her breath will not waste her brokenness. She knows that even shattered things can shine in the right light. So she lets faith be the pillow she cries into. She lets prayer be the blanket that covers her when comfort is gone. She lets grace be the light that guides her through the darkness you left behind. And slowly, quietly, she begins to heal. Not all at once, not in some grand visible way, but in the stillness, in the surrender, in the knowing that she doesn't have to have it all figured out to be held by something greater than her sorrow. When the texts don't come, when the calls don't arrive, when the door stays closed, faith opens another. Not one that leads back to you, but one that leads her back to herself, and ultimately to the one who never left. Because when faith is all that's left, she realizes it was all she ever truly needed. So now, as the hours drift into dawn and her heart still beats through the silence, something profound becomes clear. This was never just about you. This was about her, about the depth of her love, the strength of her soul, the war she fought alone when no one else knew. She didn't break the way you think. She bent, she cracked, she wept. But she didn't shatter, because even in her loneliest hour at 2 a.m., when your memory burned and your silence screamed, she kept going. She found the courage to face herself, not in the presence of comfort, but in the absence of answers. And that is where real healing begins. Not when you come back, not when closure is handed to her, but when she learns to stop begging for what left and starts blessing what stayed. Her resilience, her faith, her future. You may never return. You may never know the weight of her tears, the prayers she whispered, or the strength it took to rise from the floor where love dropped her. But she will know, and that's enough. That will always be enough. So let it be known, what was meant to break her became the beginning of her rebuilding. What was meant to silence her became the sound of her awakening. Her mind at 2 a.m.? It is no longer a graveyard of sorrow. It is now the birthplace of a woman who walked through fire and came out forged. And though she loved you until it hurt, she is now learning to love herself in a way that heals. That is the end of her waiting, and the beginning of her becoming.